This is Dan Rosenberg reading Order. I hear you wake before I'm up myself, and snap to ready now before my eyes crack from their crud to face your face today. I hear you blunder toward my door. I hear you crash it wide. The loosened hinges shiver their frame, and now the house itself, awake to the world and you, complicit, pulls me hard as thunder from my sleep. You beat the echoes to me, blear-faced, awash with night sweat. You drag a bunny by the ears to bed and tumble graceless up the mattress, silent, a drowsy rocket wanting something I'm not awake enough to understand, but will be soon, my son. And then we'll go to blaze the day, to stomp each puddle left by the rain you never notice as you pull me into the world, all leap and bowl, all grab and fall. Today I'll wake up better, call the distance order it to be a smaller thing. I'll stand to make it so. About this poem. As a father, I sometimes surrender into the comfort of pretending certainty, of asserting an order to the wild world. So this poem arose from my waking up to the importance and impotence of that fantasy. It also aims for a poetics of engaged fatherhood, of fathering as a way of life that is at the core of mine.
Like, I feel for us, like there was a point where it was just life and death. What we managed to achieve, especially through the camp out and like your presence and Johnny's presence, and it really is familial.
Oh yeah.
I like very much, and those people have really helped me out, and they will probably help me out again. So I feel strongly like we need to be able to do at least something good and strong in the next year or two.
Yeah.
Just as a thank you,
Right. And
So-
in the midst of that, because you just sent over that album, and now I have all 10 tracks.
Yeah, you'll have everything now.
This is the best album you've ever made.
The first song in the series existed kind of in February before we went into lockdown.
Wow.
Yeah, do you know what you believe? 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 Yeah, do you know what you believe?
I had been asked, I've been kind of slussing around. I hadn't been to Europe in a while, solo, and I'd had a really good time a few years back, just in a passenger car with an acoustic guitar. And I was playing like houses,
Sure.
living rooms, but super fun. And so I wanted to get Greg, and because Jonathan's in Europe, on this little network that I found in northern France, Netherlands, Germany. And so I was talking with the distributor, and he's like, I like this record, we'll distribute it. I just like one new track. And so I was scrambling because I was running out of time and I didn't have a lot of money. And so I called kind of some of the Third Mind people, and then Willie Aaron, who I play with in the band that was going to play with at your place with two heads, which is John Mormon, who plays with Matthew Sweet, Willie Aaron, who's a bouncing act. Willie was like Leonard Cohen's musical director for a while. He's a great keyboard player, and DJ Bonebreak.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wrangled these people in, and we did this song Confirmation Bias. I was like, wow, that's kind of coming out pretty well. And then like door shuts. And like literally like the day we were finishing that song, because we had basically 2 4-hour sessions that we did that in. And so we're getting a rough mix together, and I get a call from Eyelids, who were supposed to play
Right.
at your place, and we're supposed to play in Santa Monica. And and they called me, and I was like, yeah, my wife is immune compromised, and I just like, I'm not comfortable getting on a plane. And Willie and I were in the studio, like, because we were supposed to fly to Oakland and meet them. We had a sold out show at the Ivy Room. And so I just called Lonnie at the Ivy Room, and I was like, are you okay? And she's like, I was going to call you and shut it down.
Oh, yeah.
And then it all shut. And I was like, you know, and then I called like the people I freelance for, and like, oh, we've cut our budget by like 2/3 or whatever, you know, It's like, well, so I applied for unemployment, which mercifully I didn't have a hard time getting it. And sat in my mom's den and like went down to the storage space, you know, where like my life was, and it's like, there's some recording gear here and here somewhere. Who knows what's going to happen? I just started writing. So literally all those songs, they started, I think I actually have dates for them, but I think they started like March 27th, and I wrote it all from March 27th until September.
Head for the hills, let's hit the road. Let's pack it up, let's close this show. Let's make a move, let's split this town, let's burn it down. Let's break up camp and douse the fire. Call back the dogs and join the choir. Set 'em up, Joe, one for my baby and one for the road.
It's dedicated to like Jane Cortez and Alice Coltrane. I can't remember who Moki is, but you know, very famous, strong African-American women.
Yeah.
And it's this really beautiful, long, like I said, like an hour-long piece, like hypnotic, kind of crazy. And I saw that at Zebulon right before I left on the camper tour, and I was like, what, you know, what do I have to lose other than like sitting? So I like broke out the 12-string and just like weird tune, like playing with like Joni Mitchell tunings, just like whatever. And finally it's like, okay, this tuning kind of works. And just started bashing around, and I had this musical motif in my head that normally in like standard tuning I could just kind of figure it out. And I was like, I'm going to try and figure out how to do this in this tuning. And it just all kind of, it all just kind of went from there. But that, all of that writing was like that.
Well, I wish I was a sailor, just sailing on the sea. I wish I was a mystic, just walking through the trees. But we're marching down a silk road, no idea what it means. Lord, we're trouble bound by all the things we can't see.
Somehow or another, everything was lining up in a very visceral way. And a lot of it, I'm sure, had to do, you know, with the pandemic and being locked away, and also being so isolated. Mercifully, my friends are good and close, and there was a lot of communication. But when your best friend is losing 3 people in their family, and she's Latina, and she's been, her mother was migrant. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So you want to do something to acknowledge it. At least I do. Like artistically, and also just to kind of process it, because it's such a deep thing we've been through.
Well, now you are out there and I am somewhere, and this is the future and we are here. No one's walking hand in hand. We know nothing, down to a man who's an optimist, who's a fool, who's a dreamer, not a hope in the world, but remains a believer. We're abused by the takers and ignored by redeemers, lost in the stars, our last great deceiver. And I saw you through a window, I saw you through the broken glass.
The deluge of information, they can't kind of find their center, and they kind of know what they like, but they don't really know what they like. So you've got like internet overload, and then kind of like ironic taste and all these things. And so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel for us, like there was a point where it was just life and death.
Well, we'll continue this conversation, my friend.
Yeah, we'll pick it up.
Okay.
All right, Chris.
I can't hear you because I'm listening to Greg Lisher with David Immergluck and Jonathan Sagal at Campout V, Pappy and Harriet's Pioneertown Palace, on the indoor stage from Saturday night in September, on September 12th, 2008. They played City of Big Dreams from Greg's album Handed Down the Wire, and it sounds good to me. It was recorded with my microphones by me, but not with my recorders, so we'd like to thank Satit and Father Dan for the use of the gear, because sometimes recording things is a team sport. So we'll see you next time, all the time, here on the Time Machine, or now on the Time Machine. Yes, now.
Come on down from those high heels, barely standing when you're still. Just look into the mirror, you will see things clear when the makeup starts to fade away. In the sea mask confusion, you will see you're not alone. In the city of delusion, you will find yourself no home. Step on down from that big car. It's only hiding who you are. Riches big and small will only make you fall from the life you hold so very high. See you mask confusion, you will see you're not alone. In the city of delusion, you will find yourself no home. In the mountains where we were raised, love was simple. start to wake, you will see through the haze. Come around to be yourself, yourself, yourself.
Doug Gillette opened his first Inland Empire record store in the mid-1950s in Colton. By the early 1960s, he decided to pull up stakes and move to new locations. Gillette opened locations in Corona and the Brockton Arcade in Riverside. The Colton store was still open, but changed its name to Colton Audio TV Records. The Corona location didn't last long, and that left the Brockton Arcade store as Gillette's only Riverside County presence. Repeating what he did in Colton, Gillette began advertising in the Riverside High School and the Riverside City College yearbooks, as seen here. In January 1971, Gillette was interviewed by Henry Mendoza of the San Bernardino Sun newspaper. In the interview, he explained that 75% of his customers were between the ages of 13 to 25 years old. He talked about his philosophy of customer service. Gillette said they, the customers, must be able to find mostly what they want. And that's not only albums. That's not only music. Basically, you have to have a fair store, and you have to be honest, he said. The whole feeling of today is written in today's music. They, the kids, think business is rooking them all. If a guy wants to go into the record business and he doesn't like kids, he's out of his mind. In 1983, the then 72-year-old Gillette was interviewed by Jim Barry of the Press Enterprise newspaper. He talked about his theories on physical conditioning and his entry into the sport of competitive cycling. In 1986, Gillette was profiled by music trade publication Billboard magazine. By this year, he was working a split shift at both Abbey Road Distributors in Santa Ana in the morning and then at his Riverside store from 4 to 7 p.m. A few years earlier, he had stopped selling vinyl and became one of the first dealers to change his stock completely to compact discs. Not long after this article appeared, Gillette closed his Riverside store and moved his operation to Lake Havasu, Arizona. After Gillette left the Inland Empire, most locals lost track of him, at least until this article appeared in the June 11, 1995 issue of the Riverside Press Enterprise newspaper. Reporter Dan Bernstein wrote, "Driving through the parking lot at Riverside's wilting Brockton Arcade, I thought to myself, whatever happened to the guy who had the record store?" A few days later, out of the big blue, I received a call from Bruce Clark of the famous Riverside health food clan. Clark just wanted someone to know that Doug Gillette, the guy who had the record store, died in mid-May in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Bernstein continued, "Though I occasionally shopped in his store, I didn't know Doug Gillette. Even back in the mid-1970s, I was a bit too old for the Gillette crowd. Teenagers populated the Gillette crowd. They loved him. A lot of Riversiders now well into their 30s hung out at Gillette Records. They browsed, bought, listened to records, or just talked to their friend, an old man with a bushy gray beard and sometimes sad eyes. A man who loved to argue but didn't feel it was his place to pass judgment. A man who once said, 'These are all my kids. It's something I truly value. An old guy like me, they let me move around with them.' In 1986, he finally left Riverside and, with Bruce Clark, opened the Health Castle, next to the London Bridge in Lake Havasu. Clark handled the health food and exercise equipment. Gillette sold CDs. He thought he was going to live to be 120, said Clark, who returned to Riverside to help run the Clark Nutrition and Fitness Center in downtown Riverside. But a recent fall might have been the beginning of the end. Gillette hobbled around on crutches for a while. Then he fell again. He refused to see a doctor. He had no immediate family and didn't want to saddle anyone else. Clark figures Doug Gillette holed himself up in his Lake Havasu digs, where he died May 16, 3 days shy of his 85th birthday. But Doug Gillette was not a forgotten man among Inland Empire music fans. In 1967, an 11-year-old Riverside boy by the name of Tom Allen hung out at Gillette's record store in the Brockton Arcade, listening to and buying albums. In May 2011, 44 years later, he opened his own record store in Riverside. His original dream was to open his store in the Brockton Arcade in the space originally occupied by Gillette's. However, it was unavailable, so he opened his store in a shopping center near UCR. He named his store Groover's Physical Music. At the front counter, he paid homage to his mentor and friend, Doug Gillette, by displaying a photo of him. Colton's Maurice Oliva was a member of a number of IE bands back in the 1960s. He retired from the city of Riverside in July 2010, following a 28-year career in municipal government. He had this to say about Doug Gillette. Doug was a good man, ahead of his time. He remained an advocate of young folks, music, biking, and good health and fitness into his 80s. He was a brilliant, innovative businessman and a student of life, a great conversationalist, and my friend. I sure miss that man.
Chunk, chunk, thick chunk. Chunky. Thick chunk. Chunky. Open wide for Chunky.
The thickest nickel chocolate bar in the USA. Milk chocolate, raisins, Brazil nuts, cashews. Chunky, extra thick for extra flavor. New, just nuts and milk chocolate. Pecan Chunky.
Open wide for Chunky. Chunky.
Here on the edge of the continent, horizontal gravity draws destitute and dreamers and the trust fund bourgeoisie. Between the silent San Andreas threat and the gray-green smoggy gloom, surf is up, but the chips are down on the dark side of my room. Yeah, the surf is up, but the chips are down on the dark side of my room.
Hey folks, thanks for hanging out at the Lo-Fi Lounge. We'll see you all next week. Wait, we got one more thing.